Could you imagine a bunch of athletic freaks who could run a sub 10 second 100 metre race playing in the Premier League? And what if those freaks also had springs in their legs when they jumped and could bench press a couple of 100 kilos with ease? Who cares if they've even seen a football before? Surely they can hold their own in the Premier League. I've made a team full of athletic freaks who barely even know what a football is to see whether they could do a better job of surviving in the Premier League than Luton Town did last year. The results of this experiment shocked me, or maybe they probably shouldn't, because this is Football Manager after all. So to start off with, I made every player on the Luton team, and I mean every player, have 20 for every physical attribute, and then 5 for every technical, or goalkeeping, and every mental attribute as well. That gives the goalkeepers a recommended ability of just 54, while the defenders have roughly 91, the midfielders have a recommended ability roughly of 86, and the strikers around about 109. This is not a team that should be even competitive in League One, let alone in the Premier League. Things didn't start too well with a 2-0 loss at home to Bournemouth to start the season. But after 3 games, we had one of each outcome as we managed to beat Aston Villa at home 2-0. Andros Townsend's speed on clear display for the second goal as we got our first win. Amazingly, September was an incredible month as we went unbeaten with wins against Newcastle 2-1, Wolves 2-1, Palace 3-1, and progressing through in the Carabao Cup 3-1 at home as well. But it came crashing back to earth as October saw a winless run with a draw and 3 losses, seeing us still in a respectable mid-table as we start November. And then in November, we took on fellow promoted side Sheffield United. 3 second half goals for Luton saw us take a 3-0 lead, with the second goal showing the incredible speed on show from the team as Jacob Brown beat the defence to a through ball and slotted home. We held on for a 3-2 win at Bramwell Lane, as this should surely propel us forward towards the end of the year. Ah, bugger. Where the hell did this come from? 4 goals conceded in each half for an 8-0 loss at the Emirates. 2-0 losses to Liverpool at home, and then to Man United away from home was followed by a far better result, 2-2 at home to Chelsea. But that's when we kicked it into a new gear. The jumping reach of the players meant we were always a threat from corners, and the speed, especially at the back post, meant we could always get to loose balls way ahead of the defenders. Jacob Brown was often the beneficiary of the speed and power of this team. But because he can jump higher than an Olympic athlete, he can rise above everyone else for crosses just like this. And he ended up with a hat-trick against Fulham in a 3-1 win. That good run of form sees us sitting in 11th place halfway through the season. After the turn of the year, our speed was used to fine effect to knock out Rotherham in the FA Cup. But once again, when we come up against the big teams, we sometimes get destroyed. Just like losing 5-0 to Man City, who played all around us. But we needed to get right back into the season and using our speed and power to marvellous use. During a great win at home to Palace, we then continued on in the FA Cup, with Luke Berry using his incredible speed to blow past Huddersfield, and then lifting higher than everyone else for the hat-trick goal as part of 4 he put past the Terriers. We continued our good run into March with Alfie Doughty using his speed to get into position on some horrible West Ham defence, followed by a huge jumping leap from the advanced forward Jacob Brown, guiding us to a wonderful 3-2 win over the Hammers. But then unfortunately we crashed out of the FA Cup 2-1 to Arsenal. In April, we had probably the biggest win of the season, as we travelled to Anfield and had Luke Berry pouncing on some indifferent Liverpool defence to score early on in the game. And 9 minutes later, Andros Townsend rose at the back post after a long cross to nod home a second goal in one hell of a good 2-0 win against the Premier League leaders. And with just a few games to go, we could be on the brink of European football with a bunch of incredibly average players who just happen to be physical monsters. And despite going down to Man City 3-0 in the penultimate game, we came back to Luton to host Fulham, and with this goal, we see the team finish this season with another win, 1-0, to finish in 8th place. And while those big losses early in the season means we had a negative goal difference, we won 4 more games than we lost. If we have a look at the stats, we actually had the most shots in the league, To me, this clearly shows that having the physical ability will get you into those key positions much better than any technical or mental ability will. But then our on-target percentage was absolutely horrible at 37%. So clearly we needed more technical ability to actually put those goals away. Obviously by now you would have seen the shattering news that FM25 has been delayed until at least March next year. So there is no better time than now to help out small content creators like me by clicking on that subscribe button and also liking the video if you like what you see today. If you want to leave a comment down below if there's any other fun experiment you want me to do, I'll respond to you and see if I can get that into practice. But for now, let's get back into the video. Okay, so I then tried this experiment by putting all of the goalkeeping, technical and mental abilities of each player down to just one. As you can see, Tim Krul here has 1 for everything and then 20 for his physicals. And then Captain Tom Lockyer has the exact same, 1 for all his technicals, 1 for all his mentals and 20 for his physical abilities. Can they still survive in the Premier League with these kind of attributes? Let's find out shortly. So as we get halfway through the season, we are in dead last place with a goal difference of minus 126. In fact, I think we are struggling so badly that every other team has a really good goal difference because of it, because they're just coming in, destroying us, and that is helping out their stats. So we've only scored 8 goals for the season and we've conceded 134. Just looking at our schedule, we've got a few things like 4-0 losses and 4-1s even, a 5-0, a 5-2, that's a great game for us really, against Nottingham Forest. But then we also have a 14-0 loss to Arsenal. Eddie Nketiah had a fantastic day scoring 6 goals in this one. And then we also had a 10-0 loss to Liverpool, in which Cody Gakpo got himself a hat-trick. And probably the worst one of the lot was going away to Goodison Park and getting destroyed by Everton 12-0. Amadou Onana, the defensive midfielder, scored 4 against us. And then progressing on to the end of the season, and we didn't win a game. Clearly having 1 for all of those technical and mental attributes is never going to get you any wins, especially as high up as the Premier League. And yet if we bump all of those attributes up by just 4, then we become a team that is pushing for European football. We had some absolute shockers towards the end of the season. So we lost to Brighton and Hove Albion 13-0 at the American Express Stadium in Brighton. We then went to Anfield and lost 16-1 with Nunez, Diogo Jota and Dominic Szoboszlai getting hat-tricks, while Mohamed Salah got 4 goals in that game. We lost 11-1 to Chelsea with Mykhailo Mudryk getting 5 goals. We are not a very good side right here. And on the second last game of the season, we lost 18-0 to Man City. 3 players picked up 4 goals for the game, with Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva and Erling Haaland all getting 4, while Jack Grealish got himself a hat-trick. So then for the final experiment, I went the other way and I put all of their goalkeeping and mental attributes up to 10. And of course for the outfield players, it's their technical and mental attributes up to 10. So by definition, these guys are average technically and average mentally. They're not anything special at all. They are just ridiculous muscle-bound freaks. Yet halfway through the season, we hadn't lost a game yet. 16 wins, 3 draws. A goal difference of 51, so we're not necessarily blowing people away. We are just doing the job to get the wins. There were a couple of blowaway wins. 10-0 win against Preston North End in the Carabao Cup. Perhaps that's to be expected, with Preston being a level below us. Jacob Brown scoring 5 goals in that game. We did have a 6-0 win away from home to fellow promoted side Burnley, which was then followed by an even better win with a 7-0 home win to Spurs. And come the end of the season, we had only lost 1 game. We drew 4, which meant we finished on 103 points and cruised home for the Premier League trophy by 17 points ahead of Man City. We also picked up a trophy along the way with a 2-1 win in the Carabao Cup final against Liverpool at Wembley, with Jacob Brown scoring a double, including a 72nd minute winner. But amazingly, we lost 1-0 in the quarter-final of the FA Cup to Newcastle, having missed a penalty through Issa Kabore. I mean, he's a pretty average penalty kick taker, just like the rest of the team. But again, we didn't have too many ridiculous results, although Preston would have been happy to see the back of us because we put another 8 goals past them in the third round of the FA Cup, and we ended the season with a massive 6-1 win against Fulham. For the second half of the year, outside of that FA Cup win against Preston, this was essentially the most goals we scored in a game. So I decided to see if we could actually do anything in Europe, given that we've got Champions League football. And halfway through the season, we were doing even better in the Premier League. We only had 1 draw with 19 wins from our first 20 games. The Champions League was slightly tougher, with 2/3 of our games being wins and 1/3 of them being draws, as we drew twice in the first 6 games. And they were 2 games that we probably should have been winning. We drew 1-1 with Celtic and 2-2 with Feyenoord, but then went on to thump Liverpool 6-0. And progressing to the end of the season, that draw against Chelsea in September was the only time we dropped points in the Premier League, as we had 37 wins and 1 draw, with a goal difference of plus 105. But this time we did so much better in the Cups, as we won the FA Cup, although it was on penalties. Again, we have average penalty takers, but we got the job done. Earlier in the season, we had defended our trophy in the Carabao Cup with a 6-2 hammering of Man United, with 3 second half goals leading us to the trophy. But the most impressive result of all was a 2-0 win in the Champions League final in Munich against PSG, who had Mbappe missing a penalty in the 88th minute, which would have equalised the game, and then Ross Barkley finished the game in the 93rd minute for Luton Town to be crowned Champions League winners. This has been an incredible ride for this Luton Town team. Of course, they're all average players, but when you add in those incredible physical attributes, they become by far the best players in the world. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button if you want to keep on watching more Mr. Apple's FM content, as well as hitting the like button if you've liked this video today. Leave a comment down below if there's any other fun experiments you would like me to do. And of course, the most important thing is for you to have yourself a wonderful day.